Okay, let's see how soldiers were trained during World War II.
Stick him up or I'll blow your brains out!
Oh my. Hello and welcome to Between the Keyframes, where I discuss cartoons, animation, and all good things between. World War II had a unique impact on every American household and business. There was such a huge need for personnel and supplies that every person in the US would be affected. Scrap drives, donations, war bonds, rationing, and even the draft would be implemented to serve the war effort. And in extreme circumstances, businesses would be sort of commandeered to help as well. Car factories would be turned into aircraft factories, and yes, even animation studios and their artists would find themselves being conscripted into the military. Today we will discuss how cartoons were used to effectively educate soldiers and civilians alike. In 1942, a number of animators from Disney, MGM, and Warner Brothers would begin to join the military and enlist in the Air Force's 1st Motion Picture Unit, or the FMPU for short. If you've ever seen a movie with a ragtag bunch of cut-ups for soldiers, well, these guys were it. And it's here that they would turn out an enormous amount of film for the purposes of educating and training the troops. One of these cartoons is called Position Firing, and this cartoon, which was classified during the war, trains the gunner of an aircraft bomber how to shoot down enemy fighter planes. Starring a very animated Trigger Joe, we see him interacting with and learning from the narrator.
Okay, if you're sure you've got it straight.
Oh, I got it. I can talk it good.
Let's hear you.
Okay, let him come. Hold it. That's 2 seconds. Yeah, now he's back here. Looks like about a rad and a half. Maybe a little more. There. Start him again. How'd I do?
Didn't miss a thing.
Though there is comedy interspersed throughout, the film is very serious and highly focused on teaching gunners the real art of firing out of a moving aircraft. Now, the FMPU didn't just do cartoons. One of their biggest highlights was a super top secret project. Select few members were brought to a sealed-off soundstage where they toiled away for months, and what they were working on was a large-scale, three-dimensional map of Japan. It is here in this soundstage that they would film simulations of bombing runs. The film would then be flown all the way to Guam so that the bomber pilots overseas would be able to train for their missions. If not for the FMPU and their work, things would have been much more difficult for those pilots. Moving on, I would like to talk about a couple of the animation studios and their contribution. Warner Brothers, who are best known for the Looney Tunes cartoons, would create a series of training films starring a recurring character called Private SNAFU, with SNAFU being an acronym for Situation Normal, All F***ed Up. If it wasn't obvious from his name, these cartoons were given more leeway in terms of humor, sexual innuendo, and language, since they were only meant for soldiers to view and not the general public. One of the more notable episodes is one called Censored, which debuted in July of 1944. The cartoon opens up at night, where SNAFU is seen writing a letter to his girlfriend, Sally.
Dear Sally Lou, this is it.
In his letter, he carelessly mentions that his unit is going to the Pacific island of Bingo Bango.
So I'm sneaking this past the censor.
Once the letter reaches Sally, word spreads quickly and the Japanese pick up on it. They set up an ambush at the island and destroy SNAFU and his unit. Fortunately, this was all a dream. and when SNAFU wakes up, he quickly edits his letter.
Like I always said, every man his own censor.
In all, SNAFU starred in 27 episodes, each dealing with the consequences of his bad actions. Though Private SNAFU is not very well known today, the people producing the cartoon most certainly are. Many of the episodes were directed by Chuck Jones, Fritz Freyling, and Bob Clampett. These directors are the minds behind some of the most beloved and memorable Looney Tunes cartoons ever. Also, the voice of Private SNAFU was provided by Mel Blanc, who is the voice artist for most of the Looney Tunes characters. And when you listen to Private SNAFU talk carefully, you can certainly hear the voice of Bugs Bunny. The last studio I want to highlight in this video is Disney. Right after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the Army moved into Disney's studios, commandeering space to storage ammunition and soldiers for the purposes of defending the California coast. During these days, Walt Disney took it upon himself to begin producing training films, the first being 4 Methods of Flush Riveting. This film would teach riveters at Lockheed new techniques in riveting so that aircraft can achieve greater speeds. Another film I would like to touch upon is one that is focused on civilians and how they contribute to the war effort. In July of 1942, Disney produced a cartoon titled Food Will Win the War. This cartoon treats American farmers and their families as important weapons to fight the war, espousing how there are more U.S. farmers than there are enemy soldiers.
Twice as many as the Axis has soldiers. Grim farmers with sleeves rolled up, ready for sacrifices. These embattled farmers are armed. Their weapons are the panzer forces of Food's battle line, farm machinery, battalions of combines, regiments of trucks, divisions of corn pickers, potato diggers, planting machines, columns of milking machines, and all these machines kept in repair by farmers and their sons under the stress of war. These farmers pouring out bumper crops to fill many a bare cupboard.
The cartoon goes on to promote the massive quantities of food that farmers produce and how it is used to fight against the Axis. It ends with a celebration of the efforts of farmers contributing to the defense of our liberties and ideals. The impact of cartoons during World War II is greater than one might presume. The FMPU helped ensure air superiority over Japan and Europe due to their training films. The enemy was shocked at the speed the Americans trained their soldiers, giving credit to the Americans' mastery of film education. And on the home front, cartoons helped to unify the people in its righteous purpose to win the war. But just because the Americans mastered animation doesn't mean the enemy didn't have a go at it themselves. In my next video, we will be discussing Japanese propaganda cartoons. And boy, you do not want to miss this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share. I'm Justin Owen, and this is Between the Keyframes.